F sharp, A sharp, revisited.
Hello everyone and welcome to F Sharp A Sharp Revisited, the music review podcast where we take a look at what's new in music and put it all through the ringer. I am Joe, the music critic supervillain, and with me is Lil Nick, who's changing the game with his bars about how good and bad modern musicians are.
I have no words.
Yeah. This is where you start spitting some bars, Nick.
I refuse.
Okay.
I absolutely refuse to do that. The fact that you would bring that up,
Okay.
I'm not sure I can.
I thought it could be fun, you know. You had the metronome
No,
prepared.
Joe, no.
Okay, well we've got some albums and some songs to talk about. So starting off, we've got the new Arctic Monkeys album. You've probably heard of the Arctic Monkeys. You know, they're a very, very famous British alt rock band.
Sheffield indie band.
Yeah,
So probably the most successful product of the mid-noughties indie scene.
Probably, yeah.
Because I mean that scene died. Just completely hit a dead end and died.
And we're seeing where they've what's happened to them all recently. So Arctic Monkeys released a new album called Tranquility, Base Hotel and Casino. Bit of an odd album name, I think.
Sixth studio album, and it's 11 tracks, about 40 minutes long.
And it's come a little bit out of nowhere, if I'm going to be honest. I've seen no hype,
I've seen quite a lot of hype, but they did only announce it, I think, either last month or the month before. It's a very quick release after the announcement.
Maybe I just haven't been looking in the right places, but it kind of came out of nowhere. I only saw that it was going to be released last week when I was looking up what was coming out. But that kind of surprised me a little bit because they are such a popular band that it didn't come to me. But if you saw the hype, then
I think it's amazing that they've managed to stay as popular as they are. I mean, I know that their last album really catapulted them somehow. Don't ask me how that happened because, you know, they were sort of winding down along with all the other indie bands and then suddenly they released AM and suddenly everyone was all over them again. I don't really know what happened there. I think one of the most interesting things about the Arctic Monkeys is how the band have managed to change their style with every release while maintaining that sort of identity that they've created for themselves. And this album's probably their biggest stylistic change to date. You can probably find a word to describe each of their albums and how it sounds. So I guess their debut album would be something like raw. Suck It and See would be a bit dreamy. AM would be I don't know.
It's more slick, I would say.
Sleazy, sneaky.
Yeah.
And this one, lounge.
This album. I mean, I'm not really sure what's going on in this album. Why is Alex Turner's voice drenched in reverb on every single song?
I think it's just a really interesting direction for them to go in.
I think it's interesting. I'm not sure how much I'm digging it though, but
Okay, well, I'll just instantly come out and say I can recognise there are some faults with it, but I'm enjoying this album so much more than I expected to. I mean, Arctic Monkeys have always been a band that I've liked. I don't think they've released a single album that I thought was bad.
Yeah.
But they're not a band I've particularly, followed closely. I don't know the lyrics to all the songs.
I'd say the same for myself.
So going into this as it's been 16 years since they formed as a band, 5 years since their last album. Is this going to be any good? And actually, I really like it.
Okay.
Do you want me to explain why? Oh, okay, Joe, I guess I will.
Yeah.
Well, for a start, I think the compositions are just lush. I think that they're really expansive, and the use of tone for each instrument is brilliant, unlike certain other albums we might talk about on this podcast. And it's really shifted from them being a guitar-led band on their previous albums. Sorry, side note, it's only just occurred to me that their last album, AM, the AM could stand for Arctic Monkeys. Just a tangent, let's go back. So now it's very much a piano and drum-led album, this one.
Yeah.
Piano's providing a lot of a groove, and the drums being the sort of driving force. And they're taking on, like I said, a lot of lounge elements. And lounge isn't a genre that I don't think anyone would call lounge their favourite genre, but I think they pull it off pretty well here. At times, I even got these sorts of a Diamond Dogs Bowie-esque vibes coming from certain songs, like
Yeah.
4 out of 5, and it's very easy to listen to.
I think I kind of agree with you on a lot of those points. This album has got some really nice arrangements, some really nice grooves, some bass work is really nice as well, and they do the sound well. But I just think so many of the songs sound the same to me.
Well, I will admit that the first time I listened to the album, I thought the exact same thing, and actually, still now, I think that a lot of the tracks are very samey tempo and style-wise. I mean, you know, they could speed it up another 20 BPM on a few tracks or drop it down a bit.
Yeah.
Because as it is, it's quite standard throughout. But I don't think listening to it a few more times, getting a bit more familiar with the songs, I don't think it detracts from the experience as much as I thought it was going to on a first listen. And talking about detracting from the experience, what I'm sure you've noticed over the past few podcasts, one of my biggest factors into how much I enjoy an album is album length.
And this is 40 minutes long.
Which to me is the optimal album length. I love 40-minute albums. I can't get enough of 40-minute albums. And this is, I mean, it's the perfect length for me. And I love how it ends.
You're probably not going to like what I'm going to have to say about that point then, because I felt like there wasn't enough variation in the sound. To me, this morphed into one long song, and I think because of that, it felt longer for me.
I've seen that criticism come up a lot, actually. I think I might be one of the very few people that think it's the perfectly paced album.
I mean, it's perfectly paced in as much as it's easy to listen to, but I did, towards the end, my notes got thinner and thinner as I had less to say because there was less interesting or new things being presented in the music. But
well, this brings up an interesting point in our variation of opinion, which is that it's so rare nowadays to come across divisive albums. I think a lot of the time you'll find like albums nowadays, the reviewers of it will give sort of similar scores, maybe the odd variation here and there. This one seems to have such a diverse chain of opinions through it. I've seen people give it 1 star, people give it 5 star, and I love that. I absolutely love that.
I think that's interesting because I would imagine people who are into the more aggressive Arctic Monkeys sound will hate this if they just don't like that lounge, something a bit more laid back, low key.
As far as I've seen, it's mostly die-hard Arctic Monkeys fans which are completely rejecting this album.
And I can kind of see that, considering it's such a stylistic change. But I think it would be unfair to give this like a 1 out of 10 or anything like that, because
I think it would also be unfair to give it a 10 out of 10 because I mean there are definitely flaws on this album. I mean, getting past the stylistic change up. I mean, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. There's nothing you can really say about that. But I mean, there are definitely songs on this album which are a cut below the others. Like, my main offender is Golden Trunks. I just thought was just dull. It's one of the few really guitar-led tracks on the album, and for some reason it suffers.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Golden Trunks has a nice riff, but it seems like the lyrics and the melodies are all over the place. It's just as though, not Frank Turner, Alex Turner.
We'll come to Frank Turner being all over the place in a bit.
Yeah, it's just like Alex Turner just was like a rambling drunk.
Oh, to be honest, I think that's pretty much been a theme throughout all of their albums. He's always written the goofiest lyrics, and to be honest, I don't really mind because I don't think he ever pretends that they aren't goofy.
I think on a point like that, I really wasn't liking the lyrics on this album, and I haven't minded some of their previous lyrics. I mean, Turner's lyrical style is very much making these interesting rhymes and then trying to fit a story around them. At least that's what I hear from it. And on previous tracks, like I love Brainstorm, and it just works on that track so much. But here, I have no idea what he's saying half the time. Let me just read out these lyrics from Bat Phone. I want an interesting synonym to describe this thing that you say we're all grandfathered in. I'll use the search engine. We've got much to discuss. Too much to discuss over a bucket of balls. I can recall the glow of your low beams. I don't know what he's
I have
saying.
no idea. I have no idea what that means, to be honest. But I don't care. It reminds me of the film Submarine. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or seen it. Directed by the amazing Richard Ayoade. It's based on a book which is also fantastic. Highly recommend you read it. About a Swansea teen in I think it's meant to be the 80s, and he is very pretentious. And in the film version, the music was actually composed by Alex Turner. And I thought in that case, the sort of quite dreamy composition and the very goofy, very pretentious, verging on indulgent lyrics fit very well with the theme of the film. And I don't really mind him sort of carrying that over into his albums because that's just who Alex Turner is.
Well, if that's what he's been inspired by, then that's, what he's going to write, so...
Yeah. As far as the tracks that I did like on the album, I mean, for a start, I think the first few tracks are very strong, but most of all, the opening track, Star Treatment, I think is probably the best song on the album.
Yeah, the dreamy quality is really on point there.
And he goes about doing these falsetto vocal stabs throughout, which I think fit perfectly. And I found out recently that the vocal takes are actually taken straight from his demo takes. They weren't re-recorded in the studio around the rest of the song. So I think that kind of shines through a bit because he's less focused on trying to make it sound, great. There's a lot more sort of experimentation in his vocal delivery, which he feels like he can do in the demos, and I think it works really well here. As well as that, bass lines in the song, fantastic.
Yeah, agreed.
And I love that there isn't a huge amount of structure to the song. You just sort of drift along with it. And I also like the way that the song sort of stops for a second so he can say the line, "What do you mean you've never seen Blade Runner?" That made me laugh. Any favourite tracks for you?
I would say Star Treatment as well, but also the title track, Tranquility, Base Hotel and Casino. Again, it's another one that I just really liked. The synth tone, the bass tone, they worked really well together. That track had a bit more emphasis, I thought, which probably made it stand out of the others as well. So
also a good track.
And it also had another weird lyric, "Kiss me under the moon's side boob." Okay.
Oh, Alex Turner, you
Alex.
scamp. But I also going back to my Diamond Dogs sort of parallel, I think the song 4 out of 5 is sort of where I noticed that. And it has such an amazing ending with these really sleazy grooves and all this psychedelic whimsy.
Yeah.
It's great track. But as far as it goes, I think there are a couple of points where the tracks sort of dip below the standard quality of the album, and it is a bit of a shame. Golden Trunks and science fiction as well, possibly.
Yeah.
And I do get what people say about it feeling long. I think as I've become a bit more familiar with the songs, it's bothered me less, but I'm willing to take that criticism on board.
Yeah, it might be a barrier. I mean, I know you said you liked the vocals, but I kind of struggled with them a little bit. I found them a bit too... Even if he did take the demo tapes, it seems like they're drenched in reverb, which I think kind of works for the tone of the songs, but I guess I just didn't enjoy it as much as I would have liked to. I really struggle to have some overall thoughts about this album because it's very different. It's not one that I see myself returning to all that much, I have to be honest, but it's also the kind of album which I kind of think maybe people should give a go at the same time.
I like I said before, I just love how divisive it is, and I love the fact some people are going to love this album and some people are going to absolutely hate it, because art, I think in general, that's now considered great was considered to be trash upon release.
Well, you have to push the boundaries. You have to at least try.
Yeah.
It's either try and risk, a bit of negativity, or release something completely bland, which, I'm not a fan of. I'd probably criticise that more than something that's, at least trying to be something different and a bit risky. So yeah, I'll give that album that point.
So overall, I would give this. I'm unsure, but I think I'd probably give it around the high 7 mark.
I'm gonna give it an ambiguous 6 out of 10. Personally,
not a terrible score. by any stretch of the
not a
imagination.
terrible score, but I just found it difficult to get into, even though it does have some positive qualities to it.
Thank you for proving my divisive opinions point.
Welcome to the F-sharp, A-sharp revisited Gulag. Please place all sharp items, selfie sticks and musical instruments in the tray to your left. For your safety, humming, whistling and rhythmic foot tapping are strictly prohibited. Comrade Gardner welcomes you to his rehabilitation clinic and asks that you keep an open mind to his unconventional doctrine and techniques. Hello, I'm James and welcome to my clinic, where we offer an exclusive education program, which I call Gardner's Epicenter of Nearly Endless Rehabilitation in Custody, or generic for short. Joe and Nick would have me kill the unfortunates they send my way, but I would prefer to see them rehabilitated through extensive and punishing musical toil. Except the cheeky girls, I had them shot. But I believe in their suffering for the greater good. Consider me the music version of Thanos, except I can't click my fingers. Step 1 of my program is simple, effective, and brimming with pathos of the most perverse kind. These poor, stunted individuals have been enabled in their crimes by greedy production companies who provided them with the highest quality equipment of which they were not deserving. Just as Mjolnir can only be wielded by the worthy, so too it should be with music. This is why you had your musical items temporarily confiscated when you arrived. Imagine the horror if Quavo had snatched that harmonica, or if Fergie got her claws on a pipe organ. No, they all get kazoos. Today is their first performance. If they do well, it may help them when they ask for parole. It may do. Not fucking likely. Today they will perform Chariots of Fire for my their betterment. Ugh, wasn't that awful? I think Jared Leto may be beyond even my help. Pathetic, but hilarious.
Let us move on to the next person.
Frank Turner. Actually, Frank Turner this time.
Yeah, actually Frank Turner this time. English singer-songwriter with his new album, Be More Kind. He's an incredibly active musician. He always seems to be doing something, whether it's touring or recording or whatever. This is his 7th studio album. It's 13 songs, 49 minutes. And it's quite simply a huge disappointment.
Do you want my honest opinion about it?
Yeah.
The first time I listened to this album, I got as far as Brave Face and I just wanted to shoot myself.
So that means you did get as far as Make America Great Again.
Yes.
Because, we talked about Is She for Keeps. We talked about Is She for Keeps by Quality Control, and I said, this is the worst song of the year. Nothing is going to match it. Then I heard Migos' Walk It, Talk It, and I thought...
Quavo was on a streak.
Oh, God, Quavo. How have you managed to do that? And then I thought, well, surely nothing can be worse this year. And then, I mean, Frank Turner, of all the people, Frank Turner, who I love to bits, went and released just one of the most meaningless and just completely. I hate that I'm saying this. I really do. But he's released one of the worst songs of the year. But that's not the album. That's a single song. As far as the album goes, I feel like it's got to the point where he's releasing more watered down versions of each previous album he releases, which is a shame. As someone who I think used to deliver some of the most top tier, meaningful social and political commentary, it's now just meaningless statements and all things topical. And as far as compositions go, I mean, any rustic folky elements that he had in his previous albums just seem to be there out of obligation, and now it's all electric guitars that have no bite and drums that exist purely to just carry along these limping songs.
One point on that: when Little Changes came on, I genuinely thought it was DFS advert music.
Yeah, that song pissed me off.
No, I actually thought it was an advert. I was listening on Spotify and I was like, okay, is there a skip button? Oh my goodness.
The worst thing is that I do think that Frank Turner still believes in what he's performing, because like on tracks like There She Is, which we've already mentioned before in its acoustic form, spoiler, this new like overblown form isn't better. There's a point where his voice actually cracks in what he's singing, and I thought that something that's great about Frank Turner is the fact that like how much meaning his songs have to him really shows through in his performances, and it's always made his songs feel legitimate. And on here, it's just a shame that songs that are so bad still have that meaning to him.
I think that's probably why this album made me as angry and annoyed as it did, because it does have that feeling of authenticity to it, but I just can't. I've been holding back, Nick. I can't get my head. Within the first 5 seconds of this album, I'm already pissed off. The first line that gets sung, "Don't worry if you don't know what to do." Oh my. Firstly, worry is what causes people to action, and if you don't know what to do, you figure your shit out and then you do it. I don't wait for Frank Turner to come along and say, "Oh, it's all right if you don't do anything. It'll be all right, Joe." No, fuck off.
Don't worry, Joe. Be happy.
So already I'm getting annoyed with the album, and then that song has these really sugary guitar and hand clapping, and then it even has that kind of string build 2 minutes in where it's trying to be all sentimental, and it just makes it feel all the more empty. Like, the first track was genuinely one of the worst songs on the album. Like, Frank Turner is solving no one's problems with his music. Well, certainly not in this album. Yeah. And that I just start to think that about every other song on this album. Be more kind. Like,
it's just annoying because those are words I live by.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but the thing is, he seems to be one in this vast line of songwriters who wants to write a song like, "Oh no, Trump wants to build a wall," but then it's just so empty because it's like he shows no appreciation for any of the social concerns, political concerns. Like, sometimes you have to engage with the arguments against why people, the people who want the wall built, you need to actually address what they're thinking and what their arguments are. But these songwriters that Frank Turner is a part of, it's just like, "Oh no, just be more kind. That's all you need to do. You don't..." And it just comes across as flatulence to me, because you're coming out with these kind of political statements without actually making something that's going to make any kind of a difference. And it annoys me so much.
I think his failure to properly engage in political and social debate is actually more harmful than it is helpful on this album, to be honest.
Because I think if you are going to take it upon yourself to engage politically, I think you actually need to get properly involved in people's motivations, and then you can actually figure something out. Like, he seems to actually get somewhere on the song Common Ground, which I thought has probably the least asinine statements on the
that was definitely one of the better tracks.
If there's hope to be found, it will be in our common ground. And I'm like, yes, this is good.
Yeah, this
is good. Now try and do a bit better on I did listen to the tracks after Braveface, but I had to take it in a different sitting, Nick.
The better tracks on the album are the ones where the statement, at least the better lyrics on the album are the ones where he's not overly trying to make a statement on what he feels, but what he's observing. So, on the song 1933, which
Yeah.
I thought was one of the better tracks, but not hugely. He has the line, "The first time it was a tragedy, the second time is a farce. Outside it's 1933, so I'm hitting the bar, but I don't know what's going on anymore. The world outside is burning with a brand new light, but it isn't one that makes me feel warm." That's fine. You're telling us how you feel, but you're not trying to preach to us about what you think should be done about it, which actually, to be fair, he doesn't really do on the rest of the album all that effectively. I mean, the conviction's there, but any meaning that we can take away from it is just failing.
Like, we didn't go into...
I want to just go back to his sophomore album, Love Iron Song, which I think is fantastic, and the song off it, Love Iron Song, in which he has the opening lines, "A teacher of mine once told me, life is just a list of disappointments and defeats, and you can only do your best. I said, that's a fucking cop-out. You're just washed up and you're tired. When I get to your age, I won't be such a coward." I feel like that's a something that's happened. I feel like he's gotten to that age and he's sort of shying away from making these amazing political and social statements that he used to, for the sake of appealing to people.
Like, well, you started off by talking about "Make America Great Again," which
let's spend a second to talk about how fucking horrible that track is.
Can I start with just the first line of the chorus? "Let's make America great again by making racists ashamed."
Nuclear opinion there, Frank.
Oh, it didn't work the first time. It's not going to work a second, you fucking moron. You idiot. Frank Turner is a fucking idiot.
He's
like, making people ashamed, that doesn't change their mind. It's not going to make them change their vote. It's all you doing is making people go quiet, and that doesn't change anything. I get so annoyed.
Like, Frank's opinions mean absolutely fuck all here, and he acts like he's sprouting all these new ideas and all of this sense, when in reality, not only is he just recycling other people's ideas, he's not recycling the right ideas. It's just annoying. And what's even worse is, how I said that he sings these songs with conviction? He doesn't fucking sing them with conviction here. I have never heard a more horrifically monotonous and tiresome vocal melody than on this song. It's like he doesn't give a shit about this cash grab track.
Well, it's so generic, and the chords are very, very generic as well, and you've got this synth over the guitar.
And you've got the world's worst key change that would make Bon Jovi cringe.
See, I know you said it's your least favourite track of the year so far.
It's not. Quaver and Quality Control is still number one.
It's down there.
Though I hate this track.
The problem I have with this album is that I do think there are some compositional choices which are quite nice, but I just struggled so hard to enjoy them when it was paired with such horrible songwriting. Especially some of the cheesier moments, which in a song that had lyrics that were actually uplifting or actually, hopeful, then maybe I would have enjoyed them more. But in these songs, I couldn't. Like, take 21st Century Survival Blues. First of all, fuck that song. I think his falsetto is actually really nice in that song, but I just cannot stand it paired with, life is so difficult nowadays.
The first time I listened to that song, and I was just sort of, not really paying enough attention to it, I thought, this sounds like one of the better tracks on the album. And then I looked at the lyrics and
And it also does something I absolutely hate in music. And he's singing about, life is so difficult nowadays. And then in the chorus, in the very last line, he turns it into a love song. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are you do? Rookie mistake. Absolute rookie mistake.
This is just a bad album.
Can
There's no amount of conviction that can save just bad songwriting.
Yeah. I will say, towards the end, the last few songs on the album weren't as bad. I actually quite liked The Lifeboat.
Yeah, The Lifeboat's one of the better ones, for sure. But at that point, I've gone back to try and listen to this album and make notes on it, and I just found myself unable to get to the end of some of the songs.
Same. As I said, I listened to the last few songs kind of in isolation, and that's when I thought, this isn't so bad. Blackout has a nice guitar riff, I thought. But yeah, The Lifeboat was probably the best song on the album, in my opinion. It had a nice ominous guitar riff in the first verse, which changed into more major inflections in the second one, and it seemed to follow the story quite well, quite well throughout, and I thought that is an instant of some very good songwriting on this album. It would be better if it just happened in more than one song.
This album's making me tired to talk about. I want to move on now.
I was very worried.
It's making me sad. Did you think I was going to like this album?
I was, because I know you like Frank Turner.
Yeah.
I was a little bit worried.
If he hadn't released his previous albums, then this would be a Gulag tier. Offense, I think, just for some of the songs.
For some of the songs, yeah. I think there are some good compositional qualities, so I'm not gulagging him just yet. But
I wouldn't let you.
Well, of course. But he needs to get his act together. He needs to
stop releasing more watered down versions of each previous album he released. Because his last one, how it went is he released... His fourth album was England Keep My Bones, which I think is one of his best works. Then he released Tape Deck Heart, which was like a light version of the previous album. Then he released Positive Songs for Negative People, which was where this sort of songwriting style started to really emerge. And I mean, it was still forgivable because I felt like he sort of didn't know better in some of the situations. And some of the songs I just thought were, positive songs for negative people. He had this one song called Love 40 Down, which has one of the most laughable but kind of endearing tennis metaphors I've ever heard, which I still love. And I mean, I guess this was just the logical next step for him, and I probably shouldn't have expected any different.
I'd
give this I'd probably give it like a strong 3 out of 10, because there are some points on the album which are perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I keep saying that there are some good compositional elements that I quite liked, but I can't see them through that sometimes awful songwriting.
I can see a lot of red on your notes.
Red, lots of reds and greys, and that's not good. So I think we need to move on to something. Well, we've covered some asinine political commentary. Let's cover some actually good political commentary.
Yeah.
Shall we?
I'm glad that you started by phrasing it that way, because I was really worried you wouldn't like this track. And after talking about Frank Turner, Childish Gambino with the new track "This Is America." I mean, it's like you said, it's great political commentary, and I didn't see that the first time I listened to it. The first time I listened to it, I was getting really distracted by how little I felt like the lyrics were saying. And with repeated listens, I realised that it didn't really matter because the point was coming across completely clearly.
I do want to say just now, I feel like you need to watch the video rather than just listen to the song, in all honesty.
I do agree. Side note, the video is one of the best I've ever seen.
I will disagree on that, but we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. But I still think it's really good because in the video there are so many visual metaphors, and that's the strength of the video. You need to watch it in the mindset of you need to try and interpret what's going on, pick up on the details. I was talking
to my friend who showed me it about how great the video was and all the things going on. And he said, I was just paying attention to the dancing, and I was like, you've fallen into the trap. I mean, it's a statement on ignorance being bliss and the state of race politics in America, and how the two sort of tie together. You've got Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, sort of dancing in the forefront, doing all these popular dances, all in the background, just chaos reigns.
And of course, there's the statements on gun violence as well. The video does actually show, depictions of gun violence.
It's really shocking when it happens. First time it happened, I didn't expect it. Second time it happened, I kind of expected it, and it still took me completely by surprise in how graphic it was.
And then taking away the guns on Red Velvet, got the point across just well. It did.
Another thing that I wanted to mention is that originally I thought the ending of the song wasn't very good. It felt kind of out of place. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like it's that it's the fear of the average African American sort of breaking through this facade at the end, because it's quite chilling, really. Yeah,
it is. I do like how the song contrasts these happy sections with the really dark trap indebted.
The bass in it is so oof.
It's quite chilling, and you've got these higher pitched, eerie synths as well. I think that contrast works really well, and it does match the music video really well as well. I'm just going to say it again. Watch the video. Don't just, because what I did was, after I watched the video, I listened to the song on Spotify, and it didn't have the gunshots in, and the sections didn't really.
Yeah.
Without the context, they didn't really flow together all that well, I thought.
I don't know if this is. I mean, originally he said that he was no longer going to make any new music under the Childish Gambino name, which, I mean, that's now been disproven, and he's released some other new tracks as well live. I don't know, but I have a feeling this is going to be on a new album that comes out.
Would be the logical next step.
Yeah,
So yeah.
If I kind of hope it isn't, because I feel like it's much more effective as an individual standalone track with the video.
I think because the song on Spotify, I think if they were going to put it on the album, put the gunshots in, because
I was watching him perform it on Saturday Night Live, and there weren't the gunshots, and it just felt like a lot of the strength of it, a lot of the impact had just gone.
Agreed, but the song itself is good. I'd say.
I keep going back to it. Like, I'll just be like washing up or something, and I'll just sort of go, "It's on my phone."
Put this on.
Yeah.
I do have one criticism of the video. I think some people will tell me that my criticism is it's not what the video is going for, but something I did pick up on was that most of it is shot as a all-in-one shot video, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, single take.
But I also question his decision to have it that way, because firstly, there are two scenes on the end which are kind of, separate scenes. There's a scene in the video anyway where the camera does a quick 180 to the choir, which might as well be a completely new scene. Other than the horse going across, I can't see that there's a huge amount in the video that would take a lot of skill to pull off in one take. So the reason why I bring this up was because I also thought that the visual palette of the video was a little bit dull, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I felt, if I'm not looking out for the visual metaphors, I didn't really find myself that entertained by the video. I don't know if anyone else has felt that way.
This is Joe's inner film critic coming out. This is a whole new side of Joe that hasn't yet reared its ugly head on the podcast.
I just felt like that if they didn't try to do the bulk of it in one take, could they have got some better planned out angles or tried some different locations? Because I felt like it was just a little bit dull to me.
I would say that I feel like, because a large part of the video is us attempting to distract us from what's going on behind with the dancing in the forefront, I feel like if the shots were changing, different camera angles were being used, it would be harder to get that across as being what we're supposed to be distracted by.
Okay.
That's my own personal interpretation.
It's a good counterpoint, but I did find some of the visual palette a bit less entertaining than perhaps I would have liked. But I would still highly recommend people watching this video because of what it does offer. Is my final thoughts on that, really.
Great track. Out of 10.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
Great track.
Yeah.
And we move on.
So I thought I'd talk about the new BTS track, Love Yourself, Tier Singularity. I don't know. Their music videos have all these Korean characters and then English information, so I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I thought that the artist was called BTS Love Yourself Tier, and the song was called Singularity.
I think the song is called Singularity because I'm pretty sure Love Yourself was an album that they released last year, but I looked on the track list of it and Singularity wasn't on it, but then it has comeback trailer on the video. I have no idea what's going on.
It's a song. If you type in that combination of words, you will find it.
You will find it. And this was blowing up on trending, and BTS is probably one of the most popular K-pop bands that are kind of going global, especially in America.
I was surprised by how many views it had on YouTube.
It's been
25 million now.
Yeah, which is really good going, coming from a country that isn't from, UK or America, non-English speaking.
Non-West.
Yeah, pretty much.
Non-West and non-South American.
Yeah, and I have to say, you're probably going to expect me to say this, Nick. I was getting huge vibes from my favourite song of last year from this song.
I didn't get huge vibes, but I did sort of...
You could hear it.
I could hear the similarities.
That
But
being
that's-
If You're Here by Cornelius. But
Yeah, that's sort of the problem for me, which is that I thought that it was like a dull version of that song. I mean, the song's perfectly fine. It's very chill. It's not groundbreaking in the slightest, and it makes me want to sleep a little bit. It's fine, and that's about all I can say of it.
I actually quite enjoyed it for what it was, really. I mean, it is less detailed and less interesting than If You're Here, but that song's amazing, so
Yeah.
it's hard to really compare to it. But I just thought it did really well as like a really chill R&B version of it. I thought the vocals, they're kind of wispy on that song as well, and it fits really nicely with the theme. And I found it such a relaxing listen that I enjoyed it every time I listened to it. So I understand why it's blowing up. I think it's a lovely piece of music. It's not the best thing ever, but it's pop music. It rarely is.
He has a nice voice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think it's nice, and I think if you like chill music, it's a recommended track.
I would give it a fine out of 10.
I'm giving it a chill listen out of 10.
No, it's not something you particularly need to switch your brain on for.
Yeah.
You can just let it wash over you.
And sometimes I like music like that, if I'm going to be honest.
It can't be said for the next track.
So, we were only talking about Nicki Minaj last week when I said that Anaconda deserved to be on the worst tracks ever, according to Wikipedia.
By the way, I was listening to this with Alex in the room, and Alex thinks that this song is the worst thing Nicki Minaj has ever released.
Definitely not. Well, I think Anaconda is, but...
Yeah, I think Anaconda's worse as well.
But this song is... I have mixed feelings towards it. I'm looking at your face, Nick. You don't like it.
I don't like it. I also don't think it's the worst Nicki Minaj thing I've ever heard.
I mean,
by a long shot.
Not by a long shot. I mean, the backing isn't as kind of detailed or interesting as I usually like in my music, but I think the darker tones work really well with the song.
But then you've got that horn that sounds like someone sneezing, which is the worst sample I've heard in a very long time.
It's a very interesting sample. But I also thought that Nicki Minaj's flows were actually pretty good here as well.
Her flows are good, but her lyrics, like just about always, probably have some meaning to them, but I just really don't care to delve into them because her choice of words are always so irritating.
Okay. I will say that I liked, even if I wasn't paying much attention to the lyrics in the chorus, I liked how they matched the phonetic patterns of the Chinese language. I thought that was a really nice touch and, quite skillful to put that into English words. I thought that was actually pretty good stylistic choice for the chorus. The other things I wanted to talk about in the song is that I actually think Nicki Minaj is a bit of a genius in this song from a promotional standpoint, because the two central comparisons she makes, towards herself are ones that would be considered, quote, problematic by certain people, and it's almost like getting Insta press for your music, which in a way is a genius move in this day and age because it's free publicity. Like I saw 2 articles debating whether Nicki Minaj is culturally appropriating, Chinese culture, even though Chun-Li wasn't created by Chinese people. But, those discussions are going on. Something that I don't know whether I'm just picking up on this because I'm living in the past or whatever, because I haven't seen any discussions about it. But another comparison she makes is to King Kong, which actually works with the story of King Kong.
She makes that comparison a lot in the song.
Yeah, because what she's going for in the song matches well with the story of King Kong, someone who, King Kong's so big they decided to make a circus out of him and eventually shot him down because, he was too big. And that's essentially what she's trying to say about herself. She's the biggest female rapper in the game, and, people are starting to gun for her, which I will say there is some merit to those claims from what I've read in news articles. But then it's also a comparison that plays right into what racist white people might say about black people. So it's almost like this song is baiting those kind of discussions, which from an artistic standpoint doesn't mean anything, but I just think it's a pretty smart move on her part to try and bait those kind of reactions just so she can get promotion out of her music.
You've delved into this song a lot more than I have. That's all I can say. I mean, I can't really debate you on that one because I just didn't find the song giving me any reason to want to.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
My criticisms of the song are a lot more based than yours are.
I just bring those points up because I do find it interesting how people react culturally to these kind of cues. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, this song has been getting attention. It'll be interesting to see how much more attention it gets, and if Nicki Minaj has got any more tricks up her sleeve. I'm actually quite interested.
Well, on the subject of cultural appropriation, we hadn't got this down as something we were going to talk about, but I'll keep this quick because it was Eurovision yesterday, and because you chose to prioritise having a keyboard over having not just a TV but also a bed.
Of course.
You weren't able to watch it. The winner of Eurovision yesterday was Israel, and the person who won I thought was terrible. Let's get that out of the way. I know a lot of people think that she's fun, she makes weird noises, she's following the Me Too movement, oh, she's so good. No, she was fucking dreadful. Wake up. First of all, the song was written by two males in their 40s, so just throw that out the window. But second of all, her performance, she dressed up in a kimono, sort of brushed her skin up a bit to make it a bit more of that ethnicity. Right. And she had lots of I don't know what the name of these cats are, but the golden cats with the paws which move constantly backwards and forwards on a spring. Yeah. And while the lyrics she was singing was, "I'm not your toy," I couldn't help but think, yes, but this Japanese culture is my toy. And it just really pissed me off. Let's move on.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on.
Let's talk about another album.
Okay. I think this one will be a bit more of a straightforward review.
Yeah.
I'm certainly hoping.
Jon Hopkins with his new album Singularity.
Singularity, yes.
It's an IDM record.
IDM,
something
electronica.
I don't think we've actually covered an IDM album.
Igloo Ghost is the closest, but I'm not sure you could call him.
No, that was
IDM.
That's just
that was more breakbeat.
Bit glitchy.
Yeah.
I mean that this album, I think straight off the bat, requires time to be put aside to listen to, and it isn't something that particularly lends itself to individual track listens.
Yes.
This album is an interesting one, I think, because the way I approached it, I feel like is a way I haven't particularly approached any other album we've talked about, because I was looking at it from a sort of almost a spiritual sense. It's an experience that, I mean, it seems to me that spiritualism is a big sort of theme throughout the album, and as it goes on, it spans from sort of this humane view of it to machinations, and it's got this sort of ranges from earthly to ethereal, and it's very hard to describe because I'm not entirely sure what I think of it.
Okay, so that's interesting you took it from a spiritual perspective. I didn't see it quite that much. Something I noticed immediately, and what I found to be quite a theme throughout Hopkins's compositions throughout this album, is that often you'd hear a sound being introduced, but as the song goes on, you realise it's more than one sound. It's like it's as though there were two timbres put into one that gradually split off, and then they develop away from each other. I thought that development worked really well into the title of Singularity. You've got these, like, you can hear it in the first track, which is called Singularity. It starts off with this ambient noise, which it gradually grows more thunderous, and you realise that there's so much more to this sound. Sometimes you think to yourself, was this always here? Was it always like that? And
that's something I picked up on as well, because I thought something that's done quite spectacularly in this album is how it uses negative space to develop its sounds, because he doesn't approach music as being something that's fluid like I think a lot of musicians do. He approaches it as if it's this sort of blunt object that needs to be whittled into and shaped. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's exactly how I see it.
I can understand that. I saw it more as an exploration, but it's almost, I would describe it as someone putting on a blindfold for you, and they just shove you in a room full of fabrics, and you're gradually feeling it out, and you can gradually experience more and be more confident in what you're in your opinions of what's going on, because the sense of exploration I thought was excellent on this album.
Yeah.
My second favorite track was COSN, Cosm with spaces in between, which have these like underwater playful bouncy synths
I've told you, I think the title Cosm with the spaces in between, like I was speaking about how well the album uses negative space, I feel like it even just bleeds through into the track names.
Yeah, which is I hadn't even considered that, but that's actually really good, and it kind of plays into the sound of that song as well, because you've got these very underwater. I think a lot of this album takes place underwater personally, but these underwatery, like very slight piano arpeggios. It's quite ambient, but it gradually develops. There's more of them. They kind of appear. They don't like suddenly appear. They gradually appear one by one, and then all of a sudden you've got these. Well, not all of a sudden. It kind of comes in these gorgeous synths and pianos, and then on top of it, like you realize these synths actually had a vocal arrangement within them as well, and you've just surrounded by this soundscape of these luminous piano notes, these vocal notes going on over the top of these synth notes, and it's just gorgeous to listen to.
It really is.
And on vocal notes being gorgeous, Feel First Life, I loved that track so much. I thought it was a stroke of genius. I have not heard, like, that's probably the most beautiful vocal arrangement I've heard in non-classical music.
Yeah.
Full stop. I thought it was lovely.
Just getting this out the way, I don't think there's a single bad track on this album.
I pretty much agree. I mean, I think there's one or two tracks which I don't think are quite as strong as the others, and that's.
But I still think
but every track is well developed.
Yeah. Talking about how the exploration of this album was sort of where I got the whole spiritualism thing from, because there are like consistent pulses in the songs, these paroxysms that sort of anchor the humanity of the pieces, and at the same time everything feels entirely deliberate. Nothing in this album feels like it was left to chance or discovered, which is where I got this sort of just feeling of sort of divine creation in it. I personally I'm not religious. I've sort of explored these sorts of areas briefly, so I don't know. It's so easy to interpret this album. And it's an album that I can see myself coming back to a lot, just to try and experience new things. Look at all these different ways that Jon Hopkins has placed elements into the track for us to discover.
And I think what took me by surprise anyway is that I do listen to a fair bit of electronica IDM, and I can't think of another album that develops its sounds quite as just naturally and organically as this album does. And for me, it's just a major plus for me. Like we've talked about some albums this week where I feel like I've had to force myself to listen to them a little bit, whereas this one I have.
And this is the longest album that we've talked about this week.
Longest, it's over an hour, 9 tracks, 62 minutes, not including the bonus tracks.
I didn't know there were bonus tracks.
I think they're just edits of some of the previous tracks, but the main album is what I'm here for, and I just enjoy coming back to it. And whenever I've got an hour and I want something a bit more peaceful, relaxing, that I can just get a bit lost in, it's the perfect listen, really.
I'd like to mention just a couple of things to detract, just to completely ruin our joy fest. First off, I agree with you. I think the pace of each track sort of varies throughout the album, so it never feels sluggish. And it sort of justifies its length, though I do think that, like I said, it's an album you do need to put time aside to listen to, which might put some people off. I think some of the tracks do focus on their own particular motifs for slightly too long in places. I want to sort of get on with the exploration of different areas rather than focus on the same ones for too long.
I would agree with you on Everything Connected. The fourth track I think it's 11 minutes long. That's one track where I feel like it could have ended at about kind of 7 or 8 minutes. I mean,
I don't think this is a problem too much. Everything Connected was one of the ones that I I mean, it's annoying because I think that track has some of the most amazing ideas on it. It just focuses on them for a little bit too long. But my favourite track on the album is Luminous Beings. And for no reason other than that track just brings such joy. It's so delicate and yet so full of purpose, and it builds. It starts with this cold, mechanistic opening, and it just builds life out of it. I'm hitting things. I'm so overwhelmed.
Oh, I have to agree with you. I wrote pretty much the exact same thing. I love how it just morphs the light out of the darkness. It was just lovely to listen to.
It's nothing else I need to say about it because it's kind of overwhelming how simple it is.
Like I mean, you say it's simple, but the compositions themselves, they must have taken so much thought and deliberation. Like I can only imagine, this is I think 4 or 5 years since his last album, and I would imagine he has been pretty much working on this album since then, because when I listen to this album, I just feel like everything's so perfect that so much thought and deliberation must have gone into it. I just think it must have.
It's an album that I am definitely going to listen to again. Just one more note: the production on the album is fantastic. Simple as.
I didn't even think about that because it was so,
I know,
so easy to listen to.
It's something that's only just occurred to me at this second, because I was just so lost in the depth of the album that the
production must be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd have to point out, the other tracks I loved Emerald Rush, the second track. It's another one that very much takes place underwater, in my opinion, but I just love how the scattered melody from the piano notes, they seem to make sense, but they seem completely just improvised and offbeat at the same time. It's such a perfect combination, and I love how it gradually gets to more confident rhythms. It feels like it's taking you through an underwater cave full of emeralds, and I love it. So yeah.
Well, I'd say on a sonic level, this album is just fantastic, and on a thematic level, that's up to you.
It's how much you want to take from it, I think, but I do think this album gives you a lot to work with, I want to say.
Bravo, Jon Hopkins, a man whose name I'd never heard before you mentioned we should do this for the podcast.
Well, I listened to his last album, and that was pretty good. I thought, this is someone worth paying attention to. But this is, I just think this is his best album. It's fantastic. I see myself revisiting it a lot this year.
You see yourself F#A# revisiting it?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. What score do I want to give it?
See, this is something I love about doing these podcasts, is that I will write on my notes a score, and then about 50% of the time during the actual podcast I'll give it a different score to what I've written down. That went for Frank Turner earlier. I'd written 4 out of 10. That changed to a strong 3. I've written light 8 for this, and I'm trying to decide whether to actually bump that up to a strong 8. I don't know. I
think I'm at the point where I think it's only because Everything Connected goes on for a little bit too long. Neon Pattern Drum is the only track which I don't think has the most interesting ideas. Those are the only real criticisms I have on this album. And for me, that's telling me if not a light 9 at least, it's definitely a strong 8. I'm somewhere between there.
I do think I'm going to give it a strong 8.
This is a highly recommend. If you like electronic music of a more ambient variety, this is a must listen, I think, and I would recommend this to people who kind of want to see what this genre has to offer as well.
Oh, it's good.
Oh, that was good.
Fun. Album. That's definitely, if we're going to recommend one album. This
album
this
of
time
the
round,
podcast.
Album of the podcast goes to Singularity by Jon Hopkins.
Yeah, track of the podcast goes to Childish Gambino, I think. Well,
I don't know. Luminous Beings is fantastic.
Oh well, yeah.
If we're taking it from the track section, then it definitely.
I was thinking more just from the track section. I mean, there are probably 3 or 4 tracks I like on Singularity by Jon Hopkins that I'm falling in love with.
Well, now we're going to move on to Well, there's a band called Frightened Rabbit who I love to bits, and in fact, one of their albums, The Midnight Organ Fight, is one of my favourite albums of all time. And Scott Hutchison, the frontman of Frightened Rabbit, who has always been so forthright with singing about his struggles with mental illness and suicide, finally did end up taking his life a couple of days ago as at the point of us recording this. And I wanted to talk about his work to just, I don't know, to commemorate him, to pay tribute to him. But Joe, you've never really listened to Frightened Rabbit,
I haven't, no.
I don't want to do this all by myself. So what I've done instead is, yesterday I actually quite quickly knocked up a cover of one of Frightened Rabbit's songs. I had some trouble deciding which one I wanted to do because I think so many of them speak to the situation. The song The Modern Leper from The Midnight Organ Fight is one of the greatest songs about depression I know. The song Floating in the Fourth, well, a fantastic song now, has just... It's completely changed its meaning with the actions that he's taken. When he sang the line, I think I'll save suicide for another year on it, well... So I decided I was going to cover the song Heads Roll Off, which to me is very much a celebration of life and all that can be done with it. And God knows Scott Hutchison did a lot with his life, as short as it was. And from what I've seen, the outpour of grief from friends and family and fans, he did a lot. So I'm going to put that in now, so you can all listen to it. Jesus is just a Spanish boy's name. How come one man got so much fame? To enemy, it's pointless to anybody that doesn't have faith. Give me the cloth and I'll wipe my face. When it's all gone, something carries on, and it's not morbid at all. Just when nature's had enough of you, when my blood stops, someone else's will not. Someone else's will turn. While I'm alive, I'll make tiny changes to earth. So you can burn me, 'cause we'll all be the same way. Dirt in someone's eyes, crying down the drain. I believe in a house in the clouds, and God's got his dead friends round. Painted all the walls red to remind them they're all dead. And you know when it's all gone, something carries on. It's not morbid at all, just when nature's had enough of you. Tiny changes to earth. Tiny changes to earth. Tiny changes to earth. Hopefully I'll never have to do anything like that again. It was something I needed to do.
Absolutely.
Well, let's finish the show by doing some shout-outs, as we always do. Joe, have you listened to anything funky and fresh this week?
Well, listen to something fresh. I'm not sure how... Well, something I've listened to this week is the new Charlie Puth album, because I've seen him advertised everywhere on the internet. Honestly, he's the kind of pop artist who comes across as thinking he's alternative just because there's guitar in his songs. No.
I've never heard a song by Charlie. Is it Puff or Poof?
I think, well, it's Puth. I've never heard it said, so I just think Puff. And so if you like Ed Sheeran, you'll probably like him.
If you like Ed Sheeran, there was, going back to Eurovision, the German entry was Ed Sheeran, but with longer hair and a different name.
Okay.
His song was actually one of the better ones, but we're not talking about that. Albums I have listened to this week as well. First of all, the new Shaky Graves album. I love the name Shaky Graves. It just rolls off the tongue. It's a good album. I don't think it's the best thing he's ever released, and it's slightly different, not hugely. I'd recommend it. It's called Can't Wake Up. I also listened to Heaven Before All Hell Breaks Loose by Plan B. It's fine. It's not the best thing he's ever done, but it's not a bad album. It's too long.
I listened to it, and I actually haven't listened to Ill Manners, is it? Which I think
I've only listened to Ill Manners once when it came out, and I don't remember huge amounts about it. But this, to me, has more in common with his previous album, The Defamation of the Strickland Banks.
Right, okay.
Which I think is quite an underrated album, actually. I really like that one. But no, this is sort of more like that in the sense that it's got more sort of soul elements to it, though at the same time it's also quite R&B heavy. And there's also one sort of reggae track on it.
I thought it was an all right listen. I don't think it was. It wasn't game changing.
We were trying to decide whether we were going to talk about this or Arctic Monkeys, and I just decided I wouldn't have enough to talk about on it.
Yeah.
And finally, I listened to the new Giraffes album.
Giraffes.
Yeah, best band name. New album, Memory Lane. First release in I think 7 years for them, and it was a little underwhelming. It was, it wasn't bad, but I really liked some of their other work.
I found it the same as some of their other work, in as much as there are a lot of individual songs and individual elements I really like listening to, because they are a math-oriented band, quite psychedelic, which is a kind of sound I'm drawn to anyway. But it's like listening to a whole album, like I don't always feel like listening to it again. I mean, that probably sounds harsher than I mean it to, but it's worth checking out if you like that kind of music. But
to me, there's all the crazy on there you'd expect, but not a lot of the energy that I think made some of their previous work so great. I mean, if you want to listen to a song by Giraffes to really give you a clue of what they're about, I would recommend going and listening to. And give me a second while I try and read this name out. The
Nicotine Vampires one.
No, that's a great song. When the Catholic Girls Go Camping, the Nicotine Vampires rule supreme. But I was thinking the track I Am Shimmer as You Am Shimmer, as You Are Me, and We Am I, and I are all together. Our collective conscious psychogenic fugue.
I hope everyone listening has written that down.
And shimmer is spelt capital S/H, open brackets, IM, close brackets, E, parenthesis, R. Fantastic track, though. Highly recommend it.
Okay. Another album I've listened to is the new Dragon Force album.
They had a new album.
It's a Dragon Force album. That's all I can say about it.
One thing I will say about Dragon Force, all of their songs sound the same, but that one song is awesome.
Pretty much.
It's not that I want to listen to it for an entire album's worth.
Yeah.
But come on.
By now, you know what you're getting with
Yeah.
Dragon Force when you listen to it. Just very insanely bold
Yeah.
metal. Another thing I want to shout out is even though I do like This Is America by Childish Gambino as a video, my favourite music video released this year was released about a month ago, but because we did the Bad Songs podcast, I didn't talk about it then, and that's Kimi no Mikata by Kiari Pamu Pamu, who I love.
I tried introducing my sister to Kiari Pamu Pamu the other day, and she didn't get it.
She's not for everyone. The song itself isn't her best, but I love the music video so much. And this is a video that's actually one that's done in one take. But it is incredible. The amount of planning and skill that went into that video, I was absolutely breathtaking by, and the visuals are so great throughout that it's become my favourite music video of the year. So that's my other shout out for today.
We'll have to do a best music videos section on one of our podcasts.
Yeah, well, it's just as and when a great one comes
great
around.
One comes along. Just one's off the top of my head. Everlong by Foo Fighters is an all-time favourite for me. It's just so bizarre, but kind of very meaningful as well. I don't know.
The thing is, I don't really watch that many music videos. I just choose to listen most of the time, but maybe I should watch a few more.
I can tell you least favourite music video, which is actually Starlight by Muse, because Muse are known for doing such insane acts live and in their music videos, and Starlight by Muse is just them playing on an oil rig. It's literally just that.
I wouldn't have called it my least favourite, but it's a bit of a
It's just a letdown, and it's so disappointing.
And they've done some decent music videos. I mean, Knights of Sidonia just has that tongue in cheek.
I'll actually
really
make a
good.
case for Invincible having a fantastic music video.
I think it's a good video.
Yeah.
It's a good video.
Actually, now that you mention it, Anaconda by Nicki Minaj, worst music video.
It gets its point across.
I wish you hadn't said that. I think we need to
close.
Let's wrap this podcast up. So, ducks. Let's talk about these ducks. Arctic Monkeys duck. I'm going to give a slice of bread to for trying something new.
I'm going to give them a pat on the head. Wasn't entirely convinced by the album, but I think it was. They
tried something new and they didn't quite pull it off for you.
Yeah. But I think that's fine. That's fine.
Frank Turner, I'm going to take away all the bread I've ever given him.
Warning shots from me.
You can have it back if you improve. Just point the gun.
Yeah, I think I need to fire a few warning shots. I'm less patient.
Then you got Jon Hopkins duck, who is transcended beyond the need for bread.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's just out there.
We're gonna have to transform the bread into the finest of croutons to be able to serve them to him.
Yeah, it strikes me that the Jon Hopkins duck is the sort of duck that goes to these 3 Michelin star Heston Blumenthal restaurants and orders these bizarre meals. I think he's beyond bread.
And then just quacks at the waiter. Yeah. So, yeah.
We're at the end of this podcast now. It's been a bit of a bumpy ride this week. Had a fair share of good and bad.
Yeah, a good mix.
As always, we're going to give a quick plug to Joe and his YouTube channel. Most recent video, he's talked about Janelle Monáe's new album, Dirty Computer. It's a great video. I really enjoyed it. And it's called Mr. McTidge.
Yeah.
Great channel. Highly recommend. Also,
when I actually upload the videos, that is.
Also, Stacey.
Yeah.
Joe, you can say the name of the podcast because I always get it wrong.
Stacey's Pop Culture Parlour. I think the Just Giving page is still open, maybe.
For the 24-hour stream that she did recently, which we were on, and we were amazing.
We might have been. Our episode still hasn't been released yet, so we're going to have to...
I heard only good things from the people who were listening, who are also my friends and would probably never say anything to offend me.
So... So yeah, we'll advertise that as well on our Twitter when it comes out. So yeah, stay tuned.
Keep a lookout for that. But for now, I've been Nick.
I've been Joe.
And you've been listening to F Sharp A Sharp Revisited.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. F Sharp A Sharp Revisited.